Hello and welcome to an introductory guide to Mortal Kombat 1 as your first fighting game. This will serve as both an introduction to MK1's rules and gameplay for those who are already familiar with other fighters, but it will primarily function as a way for someone completely new to competitive fighters to learn basic concepts, theory, and terminology. I'm gonna suggest if you've never played a competitive fighter before, that you grab a notepad real quick and jot down any terms or concepts that stand out to you as important. Now, before we do anything, we're gonna open the controller options and make the following changes. Input window, set that to long for now. It'll give you more time to input special attacks as you're learning, and you can change this later as to your liking. Personally, I like medium. Shortening this window causes fewer accidental inputs during a match, but long is good for now because we're learning. Release check, off. Alternate controls, off. Input shortcuts, on. Button shortcuts, doesn't matter. It gives you an alternate way to do grabs, you can use it if you want. Exit this screen, and from the main menu we're going to go into training mode, practice mode. And I'm going to ask you to pick Sub-Zero, due to his simplicity and my personal familiarity with him. You probably have another character you want to start with, but don't worry, what we learn with Sub-Zero is going to apply to any character you play with. I'm just going to be asking you to do some specific things with Sub-Zero, and this is easier if we're both using the same character. You can pick whatever cameo you like, we aren't going to get into cameos for a while. We're going to pick Scorpion as our training opponent, and again the cameo doesn't matter. Let's take a quick look at the basic controls. Up, down, left, and right. Use the D-pad of your controller, it'll give you more precise control over your inputs. But there are some people that use the analog stick and make it work, I suppose. I don't recommend it. If you're using a fighting stick, you're probably already familiar with fighters and a lot of this video is going to be redundant for you. Pressing down will put you in a crouching position, which will be useful for ducking under high attacks. Most projectiles are high attacks, and regular grabs are high. Grabs in Mortal Kombat can't touch you if you're doing what we call neutral ducking, which is crouching like this without pressing the block button to guard. Pressing left and right will move backwards and forwards, walking, and if you double tap in either direction, you'll dash. Dashing is important for quickly closing the distance between you and your opponent, or for backing away from an attack. You can press up to jump, and this is what we call a neutral jump, a jump with no direction, just straight up, vertical. Pressing up with a direction, left or right, will perform a forward or backwards jump. The shoulder button's default controls have block on the lower right trigger and your cameo assist on the upper right trigger, which we'll talk about later. Throw or grab is on the upper left trigger, and stance switch, a button that's nearly useless on its own, is on the lower left trigger. You can change these if you like. I prefer to have block on the upper right trigger and cameo on the lower left trigger. And then there's the face buttons of the controller. Since these buttons have different names across the consoles, we simplify them into numbers which correspond to the button placement on all controllers. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 being square on a PlayStation controller, X on an Xbox controller, and Y of a Nintendo controller. You need to familiarize yourself with this method of referring to your buttons immediately. It is the way everyone will be talking about the game. The 1 and 2 buttons are your low punch and high punch. 3 and 4 are low kick and high kick. What are the differences between these attacks? Well, it's better to think of them as light and heavy instead of low and high. 1 and 3, your light punch and light kick, are faster attacks and light damage. 2 and 4 are more damaging but are usually slower. These attacks are called normals because they are normal. It's not a special attack like a Sub-Zero Ice Ball or a Scorpion Spear. Those require a special series of inputs to pull off. These are normals. They require only the press of a single button. There are many normals to cover in this game. Some are universal, but others are character specific. Universal normals are things everyone has, like a standing jab, which is just pressing 1 while standing in the neutral position, and this is going to be your fastest upright normal attack. Down 1, which is crouching while pressing 1 for a quick down jab, this is very likely your character's fastest normal. Down 2, the classic Mortal Kombat uppercut. Down 3, a fast low poking kick. Down 4, a somewhat slower low poking kick that has more range and does more damage. and back 4, the classic Mortal Kombat sweep that kids did to each other over and over in the 90s. You can also include your jumping normals. Jump 1, a fast in-air punch. Jump 2, probably a slightly slower punch, usually with more range or some kind of different angle. And jump 3 or 4, which both perform the same in-air kick. These are the universal normals. Get used to them. You could even stop the video here and just go over them a few times. Repeat them in training mode a bit before moving on. Character-specific normals are what give each character variety and personality in their offense. We're going to look at some of Sub-Zero's normals, but before that we have to briefly talk about what properties all the attacks have. An attack can be a high, meaning it can be avoided by neutral ducking, or blocked either standing or crouching. A mid attack is something that hits closer to the torso area, and cannot be avoided by neutral ducking. You have to block it. Sub-Zero has several mid-hitting attacks, but the mid-normal he's going to be using the most is Forward 1. This mid-hitting punch comes out very quickly and advances Sub-Zero a good amount, making it a good attack to start your offense with, or to punish someone. Remember, it can't be neutral ducked, so if your opponent is trying to get under a high without blocking, this mid will blow them up for it. A low attack is something that makes contact with the legs or feet in a way that requires you to block in a crouching state. If you're stand blocking, this attack will hit because it's a low. Gotta block low. Many people default to blocking low because everyone has a few low options, even if it's just down 3 and down 4 being used to poke and annoy. Sub-Zero has a good low hitting normal in back 3, one of his strongest offensive tools. And when someone is blocking low, they become vulnerable to another type of attack, an overhead. An overhead is typically some kind of attack that goes downward from a high, and it must be blocked in a standing position. Sub-Zero's overhead is back 2, which pulls out this double hitting hammer, the first hit being the overhead. If they're blocking low, this hits them. These low and overhead tools make Sub-Zero a dangerous 50-50 character. What's a 50-50? It's a situation where you don't know whether to expect a low or an overhead, and you have to make a guess which way to block. When Sub-Zero is in your face, do you block low or do you block high for the overhead? Not every character has a strong low overhead 50-50 like Sub-Zero, but everyone has a way to mix you up with their options and get you feeling unsure about your defense. So those are all normals. What about the specials? That's what you're really here for. For a list of your character's specials, you can simply pause the game and see them right there. But that's not all of them. Let's open the character menu and right bumper scroll over to special moves. Now we can see every single special attack available to our character. Well, all we need to focus on are the ones highlighted in red. They have a little circle next to them. These are your base special moves to learn. We'll start with the ice ball, and that input is down forward 1. This series of inputs must be pressed quickly in succession to perform this move. Press down and quickly slide your thumb to the forward direction, creating a quarter circle motion. And when your finger gets to the forward direction, don't hesitate. Press 1 immediately. This is all one tight series of inputs. This quarter circle motion is the most common input for special moves. You can see it in many of Sub-Zero's specials. Clone is down back 1, Dive Kick is down back 4, Deadly Vapors is down forward 4. If the move isn't coming out, you're probably either doing it too slow or you're mashing. Make sure you're not wildly pressing any buttons. Calmly and cleanly go through the motion and press the attack button at the end. It'll come out every time. Another common special input, one that Sub-Zero has, is quickly pressing back to forward. This is not a rotational input, you just press back and then forward, immediately followed by the appropriate attack button. For Sub-Zero, this gives us his slide, back forward 3, and his clone charge, back forward 2. Take some time to practice these special attacks, get the timing and coordination in your muscle memory before moving on. Not only can you use these special moves while on your feet in combat, but they can be inputted in the final moments of getting up from the ground to be counted as a wake-up attack, or a get-up attack as MK1 calls it. This makes the attack come out on the first available animation frame after recovering from getting knocked down. Try it yourself and notice the screen tells you get-up attack if done correctly. Practice this against an AI opponent by going into the AI options menu and changing the opponent type to AI. Special moves can also be inputted as reversals, which happens if you're blocking something and you input the special attack right before you're able to move again after blocking. You can practice this by setting the static opponent to reversal themselves, and let's set the reversal attack as Spear. Now we're going to do our Clone Charge special attack, Back Forward 2, at about mid-range, which is around here on the screen. And when Scorpion blocks, he's going to do his own reversal spear. And we're going to block that spear and input slide as a reversal. And if we've done it with the appropriate timing, the slide will come out as soon as possible, and the screen will show reversal, so you'll know you did it right. Reversals are good ways of using certain special attacks to punish opponents for doing risky stuff while you're blocking. The last basic attack we'll cover is Grab. Like I mentioned, it's a high attack, so it can be neutral ducked, but how do they really work? If an opponent is crouching, a grab won't hit them, but if they're crouching and blocking, it raises the height of their character just enough to make a grab connect. This makes grabs very useful after blocking something at close range. If someone is in your face and they do something that you block, they're going to be scared that you're about to start attacking them in response, so they're going to block, which means you can go for a grab as a way to get around their blocking. A grab can be used to throw an opponent in front of you or behind. To throw forward, hold forward on the D-pad and press throw. To throw behind, just don't press any direction and press throw. You might use a back throw to get yourself out of the corner and have more space to move around. Corner positioning is very important in Mortal Kombat because unlike other fighters where the characters reset back to mid-screen after each round, in Mortal Kombat you pick up where you left off. So if you finish a round in the corner, you start the next one there, not where you want to be, and a back grab can help you escape. However, grabs are not unavoidable. You can break out, and Mortal Kombat has a very unorthodox way of breaking out of a grab. To break a forward grab, you must hit either the 2 button or the 4 button. To break a back grab, you must hit either the 1 button or the 3 button, which means it's a guess every time. You can use some basic logic to guess correctly, like if you're in the corner and the opponent grabs you, obviously they don't want to throw you out of the corner, they want to keep you there. So you can reasonably assume that they're gonna throw forward and you can break it. But that of course leads to mind games when they know that you're thinking that, and so they throw you backwards just to throw you off. Mind games, you'll be seeing a lot of them in fighters. Grabs are not all the same. Some grabs throw the opponent far away. Some drop them right in front of you where you can continue attacking. It depends on the character and what their general game plan is. Sometimes a grab might be a bad option because it'll put the character somewhere you don't want them. Like maybe your grab throws them full screen, and you're a character without good full screen options. Now let's talk about the bars on the screen: life bar, cameo bar, and special meter. The life bar is simple, it's how much life you have, but keep in mind characters have different amounts of life, or HP, which stands for health points. Below that is the cameo bar, which shows the recharge rate and availability of your cameo attacks. If you press the cameo button, you'll see half the bar disappear and then recharge. At the bottom we have special meter, and this resource is used to change the properties of your special attacks and break out of combos. Special meter is gained in 4 ways. 1. Taking damage. Get your ass kicked and you'll gain plenty of meter. 2. Performing special attacks. Each one builds up a little. 3. Landing attacks on your opponent. And 4. Inflicting chip damage on your opponent. Chip damage is the incremental damage you do to someone while they're blocking. Blocking doesn't invalidate all damage. You take 1 to 2% damage from each hit you block, which is Mortal Kombat's way of encouraging offense and making you not want to just sit there blocking. You also get a meter bonus for being the first person to land a hit. First hit bonus, 1 extra bar of meter. You definitely want that. To perform a combo breaker, you will need all 3 bars to be completely full. While getting hit, hold block and forward. You can break a combo as soon as the second hit if you want. To use meter on your special attacks to perform what we call an EX special or enhanced special, you need to input your special attack and press the block button simultaneously with the attack button. Try this with Sub-Zero's EX clone. Take the regular clone input of down back 1 and add the block button. It's not pressed after, it's pressed exactly at the same time as the attack button. You can see with this example that an EX special has the potential to be quite different from the original version. Experiment with your own character and find what kinds of wild tricks they have with their own EX specials. Some EX specials, typically only one per character, have protective armor on them. In Sub-Zero's case, it's his EX slide. You'll see that if I do the EX slide, it will literally go through the opponent's attack. Sub-Zero flashing yellow to show his armor absorbing the hit. You can pass through normal attacks and special attacks like projectiles and all that. Armor is used to interrupt opponents' pressure and to make wake-up attacks a lot more powerful. Wake-up attacks are not invincible since they can be stuffed, meaning they get hit by something before they're able to fully activate. So using the EX armored version of a special on Wake Up will make sure the special does not get stuffed by the opponent. Keep in mind, however, that even though armor makes it to where you can pass through an opponent's attack, you still take the damage from the hit you're absorbing. The last thing we'll cover in the basics is the Fatal Blow. When you enter your last 30% of HP, you'll gain access to a free super move that's activated by pressing block and stance switch on the shoulder buttons of your controller. This super move has armor that becomes active after a few animation frames, passing through attacks, and the damage it does is usually anywhere from 300 to 370 health points. If you use your Fatal Blow, it's gone. You only get one. However, if you miss with it, it actually doesn't go away. It comes back for you to try using again after 10 seconds. Fatal Blows can be combo broken if they are used in a combo. They can break it if they have 3 bars, which is a nice change they made from MK11 to MK1. That concludes our introduction to the basics of Mortal Kombat 1. With just this, you could have a good amount of fun. If this was too much for you, I recommend stopping here, spending some time in the game just experimenting with all these options. Rewatch this part of the video if you need to refresh, and I'll see you in the next chapter, which covers some more basic terminology, combo strings, special canceling, cameos, and the basic principles of frame advantage. Okay, I'm back. I got a drink. I had half a bag of pistachios, and I'm ready to get back into this. So, welcome to part 2. Let's start with some terms that can help you understand what's happening in the game better, and enjoy the commentary during competitive matches. Hurtbox and Hitbox. The hurtbox of your character is the invisible space around them that determines where they can be contacted. You'll see that this punch doesn't actually have to make exact contact with the opponent to hit them, because their hurtbox is actually a little further outside their visible body. All fighting games have invisible hurtboxes. When we talked about grabs, we saw that crouching and blocking raises your character to the point of being vulnerable to a grab. This is because crouch blocking raises your invisible hurtbox. Some actions significantly lower your hurtbox, like some crouching kicks. Your hurtbox is impacted when it comes into contact with the hitbox of an attack. Just like the hurtbox of your character, the hitbox of an attack determines the area and range that an attack will have an effect. Some attacks have noticeably extended hitboxes, making them quite effective. Some attacks have high vertical hitboxes, making them ideal for hitting opponents when they're in the air, or anti-airing. Punish, whiff, and whiff punish. A punish is when you hit the opponent when they're recovering from something they just did. A simple example would be blocking Scorpion's spear. We know that it takes him a long time to recover from that, and we can hit him for free. That's a punish. He's literally incapable of blocking our uppercut because he's still recovering from the animation. We block the spear, we uppercut, and the screen says punish. Many things in this game have a good amount of recovery on them, allowing us to punish. Some things have so much recovery that we have time to punish with something really damaging like a big combo. but other things are either very short in their recovery or they put you at a distance too far away, and you can only punish with something very quick like Sub-Zero's slide. But sometimes you don't block an attack just misses you. This is called a whiff. Whiffing an attack in a fighting game is very dangerous against a skilled opponent, because during the entire recovery animation, you're vulnerable to a counterattack. Watch as I suspect that Scorpion is about to attack me, so I step back just outside of his reach, making him whiff his attack, and then I go in for the whiff punish. Zoning and Rushdown. Zoning is the controlling of space through long-distance attacks. Typically, this is done with projectiles, but it could be done with very long-range normals or traps. Some characters play a very good runaway game and want to stay away from the opponent, and you have to get in on them. Rushdown is the opposite of zoning. It's when you're getting in your opponent's face to use a lot of your fast buttons to pressure them and mix them up. Characters are usually a mix of different archetypes: Zoner, Rushdown, 50-50, Trap Character, and Grappler, which focuses on different grabs. And the other terms we need to know are Footsies and Neutral game. You know when people are playing around under the dinner table, touching their feet together, playing footsies? Well, that's what we call playing in this range here, using your long-range normals to control the space in front of you, watching your opponent, being smart about your movement and positioning. Technically, neutral is any position where no one has frame advantage. Being full screen is neutral, while you're thinking about the risk between throwing a projectile and the possibility of your opponent teleporting. But when people casually talk about neutral, they're often talking about the footsies range. You're somewhat mid-screen with many options available to you. You're at the range to reach out with a low down 4. You could dash in and start pressure. You could step back and wait for the opponent to whiff an attack and then whiff punish. Neutral is where the really interesting stuff takes place because there's a lot to think about. It's not all about combos, it's about smart movement and control. But I know you want to get to the combos, so let's do it. Mortal Kombat has a dial-in combo system, where set sequences of buttons create unique strings of attacks. These combo strings, or attack strings, are used to put pressure on your opponent while they're blocking, causing chip damage. If one of these attacks actually hits, they all hit, counting as a combo. Let's look at one of Sub-Zero's easy attack strings, 2-1-2. It starts with a high jab and goes into 2 mid-hitting punches, the last one pushing the opponent away. You'll see that if the first hit lands, the next 2 also land. The opponent can't block the following punches, they're stuck eating the damage. So these 3 or 4 hit combo strings are a good source of damage. The input timing of attack strings can at times throw new players off, especially if they're coming from other fighters. You don't need to wait to input each hit of an attack string, just input the whole thing together. 2-1-2. You can input it so fast that you complete it before you even see the second punch coming out. So basically you're sending a string of commands that are saved in the system and then played out in front of you. Dial it all in at once, like how you would type a word on a keyboard. If you do a combo string after a jump-in punch, you'll need to start the string before your character touches the ground, or else it will not connect as a combo and your opponent will be able to block. But you don't have to complete the combo string. Taking 2-1-2 as an example, you could just do 2-1, and then the opponent will be expecting the last hit. But instead of the last hit coming out, you grab them while they're blocking. That's a big part of Mortal Kombat, using partial attack strings to make the opponent unsure of what's coming. If they're expecting the full string and you only do part of it, they're going to continue blocking so you can do something else. Or if they expect that you're only going to do 2 hits, they're going to stop blocking after the second hit and try to come at you. So if you actually finish the string, that third hit is going to hit them since they didn't expect you to finish. This is how you mix them up. These are all mind games. The whole will they or won't they situations you put your opponent in. And these partially completed strings are what we call stagger strings. When you watch good players, you'll see them using lots of stagger strings, because that's how you keep your offense going. If you do the full string, your offense ends. If you do 2-1-2 on block, well, it's over. But if you stagger it, well, you might be able to get away with doing it again, or doing another string, or going into a 50-50 mix-up while they're blocking. Every character has multiple unique attack strings, and they'll take some time to learn. Some of them lead to big combos, some of them knock down, some are good for juggling opponents in the air, some are useful in the corner. And every character has multiple air combat strings to extend damage and put the opponent in different screen positions. Some attack strings have vulnerable gaps that can be armored through, so you gotta be careful. Sub-Zero's main 2 strings to learn would be his low starting back 3 string, back 3-4, which is a double low, with potential to connect to a cameo attack that gives an opportunity to extend the damage further, and his forward 1 string, forward 1-2-3, starting with his excellent advancing mid punch into another mid and ending with a low. You'll see the strings staggered a lot because the second hit leaves you at a very small amount of negative block advantage. What? What was that? Negative block advantage? Well, that's frame data, and we'll get there in a minute. First, we need to talk about the last piece of basic offense, and that's special canceling. When we say special canceling, it's not what it sounds like. You're not actually canceling a special attack, even though there are some characters with the ability to literally cancel some of their special attacks. But what special canceling is really doing is canceling the recovery of a normal attack that came before it. We're going to look at a simple one for now, standing 4. Just press button 4 for this heavy attack. You can input a special attack very quickly as if you were inputting an attack string, and this causes the special attack to come out near the end of the recovery frames of the kick. Somewhere near the end of the recovery animation, it is cancelled by the stored input of the special attack, and Sub-Zero goes directly into the animation for that attack. Keep in mind that special canceling only works when the normal attack makes contact. You can't whiff a normal mid-screen and cancel it into a special. Special canceling is used all the time in fighting games. You can do down 1 special cancel, down 3 or down 4 special cancel, and you can special cancel many stagger strings or even full strings sometimes. This is how we get big combos. Instead of just doing forward 1-2-3, we do forward 1-2 with a special cancel of EX Deadly Vapors, and then we can hit with the back 2 overhead to pop them up, and catch them with forward 1-2 special cancel slide at the end. And you've got a very basic Sub-Zero combo. You can do an air juggle of 1-1-2, and then catch them with a finishing string when you land. And from here, there's a lot of possibilities with other characters and cameo attacks. You'll want to be careful just throwing out these special cancels though. If the opponent is blocking and you get greedy and do a full special cancel into something that's very punishable, you're gonna die for it. It's important to hit confirm, meaning you throw out the first 2 hits of a string and visually confirm that you hit your opponent before inputting the special cancel. If you confirm that they're blocking, then you don't do it. Or hell, do it anyways just because they aren't expecting it. Animation canceling also applies to dashing in Mortal Kombat 1. Whereas in some games you may have to fully commit to a dash before you can do anything, MK1 allows you to interrupt your dash with a normal attack, allowing for a quick micro dash into an attack, which helps out with combos, and especially punishing unsafe attacks. But you can also use the block button to do what we call block dashing, or dash blocking, however you prefer, turning standard movement into very fast mini dashes cancelled by block. And this is a big part of what players loved about Mortal Kombat 9's movement a decade ago. Due to popular demand, they've brought it back for MK1, and it changes the game in some aspects. You don't need to get into this kind of movement right now, but you will be seeing it as you get more competitive. But I mentioned block advantage, so yes, it's time to talk about frame data. Don't worry, we're not going to get too complicated here, just some basic information. Let's break it down. Mortal Kombat runs at 60 frames per second, and frames is how we measure speed, duration, and recovery in fighting games. The startup frames are the frames that something goes through as it's winding up, basically. Something like a standing jab only takes a small number of frames to start up, maybe 6 to 10, and then it becomes active. It then has a short period of active frames, where if the hitbox of an attack comes into contact with an enemy's hurtbox, there is an effect. And when the active frames are finished, and there's usually only a few, the attack then goes into recovery, like the arm being pulled back to the body after a punch. This relates directly to the section on punishing. When Scorpion throws his spear and you block it, he's in a long recovery state. Those are negative frames. He's at a severely punishable amount of block advantage. Anything -8 or 9 is going to be punishable at least by a down jab, so this is very negative. That's why it's so dangerous for him to do it on block. Anyone can hit him before he starts blocking himself. But talking about block advantage, or frame advantage, isn't just about being able to punish something or not. There are varying degrees of block advantage. Even the fastest jab, down 1, coming out at 6 or 7 frames, can't punish this string on block because it's just not negative enough. Some strings are significantly negative and can be punished with a down jab or even a full combo if they're negative enough. But the majority of normals and attack strings leave you at small amounts of negative frame advantage, what we call being minus on block or negative on block. And some attacks even leave you at positive frame advantage. This is called being plus on block. So let's talk about what that means. What does being minus on block mean for you? And what can you do when you're plus on block? It's a simple case of math. Let's take two attacks that are the same startup speed. These two characters have down jabs that have the same startup frames. If both of us hit the button at the same time, we get what we call a trade. We both hit each other on the same frame. Now, if you do something that leaves you negative, like this attack string, if both of us try to down 1 after the string ends, my opponent is going to beat me, because the negative frames mean I can't start my down 1 until a little after him. He's gonna beat me every time. However, if I do something that's plus on block, that means I can do something before my opponent can, because I actually recover from my animation before he recovers from his blocking state. So if both of us down 1 afterwards, I'm gonna win every time. This is the idea of turn taking. When you're negative, it's not your turn anymore. When you're plus, or if the opponent is negative, it is your turn. However, it's not your turn to do whatever you want. It's really just your turn to do your fastest mid-hitting or low option, like a down 1 or down 3, because something slower, or a high attack, could be interrupted by something fast from the opponent. This is where we get into disrespecting frame advantage and making a read. Making a read means you think you know what your opponent is gonna do. If I'm full screen and I make the read that my opponent is going to throw a projectile, I'll do the EX slide and put him on the ground. If I make the read that the opponent is going to grab me, I'll neutral duck and then I can punish him with a combo. Using frame advantage is all about making the read and conditioning your opponent into behaving the way you want them to behave. Let's say that our opponent is throwing out a string that's negative on block, and every time they do, we check them with a down 1. And we start noticing that they always respect the fact that they are negative. They always block, respecting your down 1 option. So instead of doing a down 1, which is getting blocked every time, we grab them because they're blocking. And we know the grab is going to work because they have been conditioned into blocking because we always check them with down 1. Or instead of grabbing, we go for a 50-50. We do the back 2 overhead or the back 3 low. Or we could start an attack string, doing staggers and racking up chip damage. We could basically do whatever we want because our opponent has been conditioned into blocking after their negative string. However, if the opponent picks up on this, they will start disrespecting their own negative frames. They'll mash down 1 or down 2 when they're negative, even though they know that your down 1 would beat them. But they're doing it because they know you're not gonna down 1. You're gonna go for a mix-up or something since you think they're gonna block. It's all about reads and mind games. But you gotta be careful because down 1s in Mortal Kombat 1 are -9, which means they can be punished by a quick down 1 themselves. And when you get hit by a down 1, your opponent is plus. Because all this plus frame, minus frame stuff doesn't just apply to block. It applies to landing hits as well. When you hit someone, it takes them time to recover from it. Those are your plus frames. You'll see that hitting someone with this string leaves me plus, which means I can check them with a guaranteed down 1 or down 4, or start some kind of pressure or mix-up if I think they're going to be blocking afterwards. It's the same situation as block advantage. Most attacks are only slightly plus on hit, but some are massively plus. Like down 4, your main footsie tool. You'll see players using down 4 a lot because it's not just a good ranged footsie tool, it's also very plus on hit. Being plus 12 or 15 could be enough time to get out a guaranteed overhead or low or even dash in for a grab. And there's not much they can do about it unless they want to armor out with an EX move or maybe try to jump. But in that case, you can make the read and be ready to react to it. If this is your first fighter, don't get bogged down in all the numbers, plus 3, plus 4, plus 6. Just think of it in terms of plus and minus. If you do something and you're plus, you get a free down 1 check. If you're minus, the opponent gets one. We should also talk about flawless block and upblock. Flawless block is when you block something very close to the frame that it makes contact. If you block right as something hits you, you'll hear a unique sound, and you will negate any chip damage it would have done. If you flawless block the first hit of an attack string, it'll negate all the chip damage of the entire string. Flawless block also causes certain attacks to change their frame data. You'll see in the attack menu that occasionally an attack string or a special attack will have different block advantage data if there's a flawless block. So if you flawless block one of these normally safe attacks, you'll put your opponent so negative that you can full combo punish. MK1 also introduces the new upblock mechanic. Literally hold up and block, and you'll be able to block overheads in a way that makes them punishable. This applies to overhead strings, specials, or jumping attacks, which can also be overheads. Upblock has a lot of recovery on it, so if you do it and miss, you'll be standing there vulnerable. Upblock also makes you take more damage from lows and throws. You'll have to experiment with this to see when to use it, as I don't know much about the mechanic yet at this early point in the game. The last bit we'll go over is the cameo system, the star feature of MK1. You have a variety of assist characters to choose from, each with 3 or 4 attacks or abilities that can drastically change your game plan. Cameos are performed by pressing the cameo button, along with different directional inputs. There are 2 kinds of cameo calls, summon and ambush. An ambush cameo can be called at any time outside of being hit or blocking, provided you have the cameo bar to use it. You can be attacking or even in the air and still call this assist, and these could really be anything. Kano's ambush is him coming out to throw knives that grant a combo if you attack right after. Sonya's ambush is a square wave that anti-airs and can be used to extend air juggles. Sector's ambush puts a missile on screen that you can direct beyond the opponent, in front or behind them. Summon cameos can only be performed while you're on the ground and cause your character to stand still as they come out. They also can't be used after specials or attack strings that can't be special cancelled. For example, I can use a summon cameo after forward 1-2 with Sub-Zero, because that's open to special cancelling. But I cannot use a summon cameo after completing the full forward 1-2-3 string, because the end of that string doesn't allow me to connect a special cancel. I can't do forward 1-2-3 slide, the same applies to cameos. Summon cameos also extend your invincibility frames when used as a wake-up attack, making them an interesting option for getting off the ground. I suspect we're going to see some really sneaky stuff as the game evolves. Cameos recharge on their own, there's nothing you can do to get them faster. And while cameo characters don't have life bars, if they get hit, your main character takes the damage. When cameos get hit, they go into a cooldown mode where they can't be called for a bit and they pause the recharge. Cameos can provide you with mobility options, defensive options, offensive options, combo juggles. You're just gonna have to experiment with your own cameo choice to find what complements your character and your playstyle. Cameos can give your character 50-50s, they can lead to frame traps, they can make your unsafe attacks safe by covering you, some cameos can set traps, there's a lot to play with. Man, I'm getting kinda tired. I've talked about so many things. I honestly think I've given you enough to get started. I'm not saying I've given you everything. I didn't cover how you can do down 2 and then cancel into an air combo by pressing block and jumping. There's little things that I didn't fit into the script. Please spend time in the MK1 tutorial, it goes over all of this and more, and it includes some really good exercises. I strongly recommend following Ketchup and Mustard here on YouTube. They are old school Mortal Kombat pros, and they put out a lot of good material. They know far more than I do. I wish you luck, and I'll probably be doing some more Mortal Kombat stuff here, so like and subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and I'll see you soon.